Saw X is upon us. I've reviewed the first one about 7 years ago. I reviewed Spiral when that came out. I think it's about time to jump into the franchise. So anyway, let's kick it off with Saw 2. Let's go. Saw 2 stars Tobin Bell, Donnie Wahlberg, Dina Meyer, Shawnee Smith, and is directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. What's up, guys? Welcome to a catalog review. I'm going to try to do as many of the Saw movies as I can before and maybe after Saw X comes out. And going forward, let me tell you this right now, I'm not like a massive Saw fan. I love the first one, was not a fan of like Spiral at all. And really, I think just, you know, everybody has their own different flavors that they like in horror. And Saw's just never been my, you know, I guess my thing. But I'm curious to go back and watch these movies again. I've seen all of them except Jigsaw, but the earlier sequels, I only saw them when they first came out. I don't even remember like if I saw them in the theater. As a matter of fact, I know if, I probably didn't see any of them in the theater. I might have just like rented them when they first came out. And just out of curiosity, and then I just never watched them again. Never felt the need to watch them again. Okay, but I know some of you guys love this franchise so much. So I guess keep that in mind going into this review, that I'm not like completely gaga over Saw as I am, say, like Halloween. That's my franchise, all right? But I am looking forward to diving back into these. I've watched 2 and 3 over the past 24 hours. And so I'm going to be talking about those two initially. All right, so we'll kick it off with Saw 2. But first, let's kick it off with a quick plot synopsis. Our main character here is Eric Matthews. He's a detective played by Donnie Wahlberg. And this movie just jumps right into the main point. And that is that his son is missing. He's trying to retrieve his son. And so, of course, he finds out that his son is in a safe space. By the way, we will be talking spoilers throughout all these movies. But yeah, his son's in a safe space, and Detective Matthews ends up coming face to face with Jigsaw. And Jigsaw just wants to have a conversation with him. And the guy he's just too much of a hothead. And he's like, dude, calm the fuck down, all right? I just want to talk to you for a little bit. We'll get your son. It sounds silly, right? And so I guess that's plot A in this. And then plot B is that there is this group of different people in this room, and they all are having to deal with this nightmare of trying to get out. They have 2 hours before they're going to die because there's a nerve agent. We all love the audio tapes that Jigsaw leaves behind. And he tells them, hey, if you follow this set of rules, if you get this key, then you might have a chance to save your life. But we all know we would never, ever, ever want to have to play Jigsaw's game, because the likelihood of getting out of this thing unscathed is probably 0. And the likelihood of getting out being completely maimed and dismembered is probably maybe 20%. And then the likelihood of getting out at all, period, without dying is probably 80%, right? Is that the right math? Carry the 2. I think there's a 9er in there somewhere. Now, we'll get to Detective Matthews in a second, but I guess I want to start with talking about the group of baddies. I guess you could call them baddies. Not everybody is what you'd call a criminal that is a victim of Jigsaw, which brings about a good moral discussion, I guess. And maybe that's what makes Saw, the franchise, so interesting, is that you can have a great discussion about morality and is this right, what he's doing? You know, because, yeah, you could have a character that is just the worst of the worst, a murderer, a rapist, whatever. But then you could have a character that just had a bad day and did something stupid, and Jigsaw wants to play a game. Now, there are a couple characters that grab my interest of this group. Obviously, one of them is Detective Matthews' son. I mean, this poor kid being stuck in this room with this group. You got this guy, Xavier, who is a drug dealer. And he's pretty much I guess the macho type of character, the bullyish type of character that just steamrolls over everyone. He's very selfish, very narcissistic. And all he thinks about is just self-preservation. He just wants to get out of there, and he doesn't want to help anybody, right? But also you have Shawnee Smith returning as Amanda. I think she's definitely one of the most interesting characters in this franchise, and she is in a few of these movies. She was in the first movie. But she's kind of the question mark in this movie when you watch it for the first time, because you're questioning, is she kind of in cahoots with Jigsaw? Is she behind the scenes with what's going on? Or is she just a victim, another victim?
Who the hell is Jigsaw?
He's a serial killer.
He's testing us. He wants us to survive this.
How do you know all this?
Because I've played before.
But she is definitely the one that has a history. We've seen her in the first movie. We know that she has went through this nightmare before. And so she has a little bit of experience to share with the rest of the group. Now, discussing Detective Matthews, I think Donnie Wahlberg's very effective in this role. I think he's just as good of an actor as his brother is. But he is pretty much, remember Wrath in Seven? That's what he is. He's like Wrath. He's just completely angry. And sometimes your anger can be misplaced on the job. You have to be as professional as possible when you're dealing with criminals. And this guy, sometimes he takes it personally, you know, and it's a hard thing to not do in a job like that. But Jigsaw just wants to have a conversation with him about his cancer and I guess the effect that the detective had on him personally. But obviously, he knows where his son is. And so this guy's just gonna be a loose cannon. And really, to his defense, wouldn't most of us react like that? You know, if we were in his job title, if our son was at stake, it would be hard to keep your cool, even if you're not a loose cannon type of guy. Which begs the question, does Jigsaw want this guy to fail? Does Jigsaw want this guy to actually die in the end of all this? You know, because he spends all this time, and I know he's got a team in the background setting up these traps and all this stuff. And wouldn't it suck if you set up all these traps and then they get through it? I guess as long as he gets to watch the trap in action, because you spend all this time creating this trap, you want to see it do what it does. I don't know, what's the point I'm trying to make here? Because you can rack your brain when you think about these movies and the moral high ground, right? And investing so much of your own time in getting back at people, and really just all different types of people. And there are times in these movies where you might feel bad for Jigsaw's victims. And maybe that's just what makes them fun. Now, before we jump into the final act, let's talk about the traps. Part two, I think, is kind of mild in terms of the traps, but there's a couple that are definitely worth talking about. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're gruesome, okay? They're definitely gruesome. I think the big one that everybody loves is the needle trap. And for some reason, this is how long it's been since I've seen this, but I thought the needle trap was in one of the later movies. But sure enough, it was in this movie. But I couldn't help but read behind the scenes, like, how in the hell did they put all those freaking needles in there, keeping them safe? And it was like 4 guys over 4 days. And I guess from a safety standpoint, making sure that every one of those needles wasn't sharp and they weren't gonna hurt anybody. But I guess a couple of sharp needles ended up falling in after they finished. And so it was really finding a needle in a needle stack. But Xavier, he pushes Amanda into this thing because he's a complete asshole, because he wants her to find the key to try to get out of the room. So I think Xavier is the one guy out of this group that you want to die like really bad. And then there's this character, Addison. This might be one of my favorite traps, where there's this like hanging housing of this key, and she has to stick her hands up in there, but she can't pull them back down, you know, because it will cut her wrists. And the reason I think it's such a great trap is because you can just like feel that pain that she feels, you know. That's the one great thing about the Saw franchise, is they take that one little thing, like as simple as like a paper cut, amplifying that to like the worst possible scenario, taking everyday pains that we have and just showing us what it would be like to die from them. You know, how far would you have to go to die from them? And I just think it makes them relatable. You know, that's why you can feel our victims' pain in these Saw movies. It's not just as simple as being shot by a gun, because not everybody's been shot by a gun. A lot of people haven't been shot by a gun. So you can't relate to that type of pain. Some of you can. Some of you have probably been shot by a gun. These are things that like 99% of people, they have a base point of reference to understand that type of pain. Now, of course, the Saw movies are great for their final acts. And all of the movies, I think, have effective final acts. And I think this one's really good too. And it's one of those where when you're watching it the second time, because I definitely remembered the final act. That might be the only thing I remembered about Saw 2 was that Donnie Wahlberg was in it and the final act. And I think that's just a testament to how good the final act is, because when you watch it the second time, you're like, how did I not see that? And there's usually a couple of different factors in these final acts. One, in this one, is that all that surveillance footage wasn't live. And when you watch it, and I don't remember if I picked up on it the first time I watched it, to poke holes, you might say, why wouldn't the detectives like remove every piece of cloth in that room if something looks like it's being covered up? Because you find out that there's these VCRs being covered up, and you mean the whole time they're standing there looking over these screens, and then to the left of them is this stack of VCRs that just happens to be covered up with massive digital play buttons on there. Are you serious? But I think, you know, it's really cool though that the whole time the son was right there in the room, you know? But that's the only way you can sell it, is to not take the cover off of those VCRs, I guess. But the whole point of it is that it all depends on the character, you know, and his weakness. And of course, Eric's weakness is his anger and his rage, and that just acts as a blanket over his common sense. If he would have calmed down and just had his conversation with Jigsaw, which any level-headed detective probably would. By the way, if it's his own kid, wouldn't they not let him be in the room anyway? That's another hole that you can poke into it. Yeah, if he would have calmed down, then Jigsaw would have been like, okay, you passed the test. Over there in the corner, here's the key. Go ahead and open that up. There's your son, okay? And you should definitely try out Baskin-Robbins ice cream when you guys are on your way home. But yeah, Saw 2, really fun movie. I would give it I'll give it a low purchase worthy. I'll go with a low purchase. I was gonna say high humdrum, but I'll give it a low purchase worthy. A lot of fun though, all right? And it moves really, really swiftly, really fast. So let me know your opinion on Saw 2 in the comments. Looking forward to hearing them. Also stay tuned for at least a couple more Saw reviews, and we're gonna get Saw X, that review's coming out on Thursday night. I didn't get any kind of press screening for it, so yeah, I'll be seeing it with you guys on Thursday night. But yeah, also be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon, buy me a coffee. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.